In this video, we are going to talk about how do we find the derivative of exponential function, okay? So in the exponential function, you will see x in the exponent, but mainly on this video, we will talk about the derivative of e to the x, okay? We can find the derivative of any exponent, any base with any positive base and any exponent, but we will focus our attention here to the derivative of e to the x. So to find out the derivative of the exponential function, the first thing we will need is we will need to use this formula. We will prove this formula later, okay? In the next section we will prove this formula, but for now we will use this to find out the derivative of fx equals to e to the x. The formula is limit x tends to 0 e to the x minus 1 divided by x. You see that if you plug in 0 here, you will get e to the 0 is 1 minus 1 is 0 over 0, right? You will get 0 over 0 home, but the limit of this will be 1, so we will have to use different formula to do that. But for now, just think this is just a formula, and then we will be proving this later, okay? So find the derivative of fx equals to e to the x. When you find out the formula of any function to find out the derivative, we use the limit formula first, okay? So what is the formula for f prime of x? Then f prime of x is equals to limit, you see that limit h tends to 0, right? Let us write down limit h tends to 0, and then f of x plus h minus f of x divided by h. That's what you get, right? So what does that mean? Since f of x equals to e to the x, then it will be e to the x plus h, meaning x is replaced by x plus h minus e to the x divided by h. You see that? So this can be written as this is equals to limit h tends to 0. So how can we simplify the first term? You can write this as e to the x times e to the h, right? Minus e to the x divided by h. What did I do this? Because if you combine these two terms, since they have the same base, and since there is a product term, you can write a single base, and then it will be x plus h. Okay, the exponent will be added. This is the laws of exponent. Okay. Now what I want to do next is I want to factor the e to the x out. What you get is e to the h minus 1 divided by h. Okay. So now since the e to the x does not have h in it, so what I want to do is e to the x, pull that out. It is like a constant for h, okay? And then take the limit h tends to 0, e to the h minus 1 over over just h, right? E to the h minus 1 over h. Now look at this formula. It says if there is a limit x tends to 0, e to the x minus 1 over x, same form, right? Limit h tends to 0, e to the h minus 1 over h. So if you plug that, so this quantity is basically 1, right? So this is basically 1. So what you get finally, it is basically e to the x. So you can write this as like this, right? Derivative of e to the x with respect to x, right, is equals to e to the x. When they match, you see that? When that e to the exponent and the derivative with respect to that x and x match, then the derivative is e to the x. So e to the x is the only function whose derivative is itself. You see that? Okay. Now tell me what will be the derivative in case of the chain rule. If they don't match, the extra thing you will do is you need to multiply by u prime, right? So it is like e to the u, because the derivative of e to the u is e to the u times, since they don't match, you see that, then it will be u prime, that is du over dx, right? So e to the u times the u prime. So we will see some examples, and then you will be clear, okay? So here y equals to x squared times e to the x plus 7 times e to the x plus e to the t squared over 6. You see that there is a product there, so it is like f times the g. What is the product rule? It is f prime times g plus f times g prime, right? And then here it is like e to the u, right? You see that this is like a e to the u. So e to the t squared over 6 is the exponent of u. So what is the derivative? E to the u times the u prime, right? So we'll use this formula to find out the derivative here. So y prime will be, f prime is 2x times e to the x, right? And then plus f is x squared times the g prime is the derivative of, this is like f, this is like g, right? So the derivative of e to the x is e to the x itself, plus 7 times the derivative of e to the x. We found that it is e to the x itself. So let me write down f prime of x here, right? So it is e to the x plus, so here the derivative of e to the u is e to the u times u prime. So e to the u times the u prime, right? So let us plug in those values. So 2x e to the x, because 2x times e to the x, plus x squared times e to the x, you can write e to the x, plus 7 e to the x plus e to the t squared over 6, right? And then times, what is the derivative of t squared over 6? So, oh, by the way, this should be x squared, I'm sorry. So the derivative of e to the x squared over 6 is, basically, it is like a e to the u, right? So e to the u times the u prime. But what is e to the u? E to the u is e to the x squared over 6 times the derivative of x squared over 6, right? X squared over 6 to the prime. So what will be the final answer then? So it will be 2x e to the x plus x squared times e to the x plus 7 times e to the x plus e to the x squared over 6 times the derivative of, so 1 over 6, you can pull that out, and the derivative of x squared will be 2x, right? So let us simplify and then factor out. If there is any common factor between the terms, we will take that out. This has e to the x, e to the x, e to the x. Let me take the e to the x out. What is left is, there is x squared plus there is 2x plus 7 and then plus e to the x squared over 6 and then times, you divide that by, divide this by 2, divide this by 2 will be 3, right? So 1/3 times 1/3 x, or you can write 1/3 x times e to the x squared over 6. You can do that way. That is perfectly fine. Okay, let us see this example. Find the derivative of y equals to natural log of 1 plus e to the x over 1 minus e to the x. So in case of the natural log, we know the formula to split this quotient of the natural log, right? So you can write this way. So y equals to natural log of the top 1 plus e to the x, right? And then minus natural log of 1 minus e to the x. You can split that this way. Okay. Now you can think this as like natural log of u and then natural log of v, like that. So do you remember the derivative of natural log of u? What is the derivative of natural log of u? It is 1 over u times the u prime, right? From the previous sections. So how do I do that? It will be 1 over u times the u prime minus 1 over v times the v prime, right? Let us plug in those values. 1 over 1 plus e to the x times, what is the derivative of 1? Is 0 plus e to the x, derivative has e to the x itself. So it's just e to the x minus 1 over 1 minus e to the x times, what is the derivative of 1 minus e to the x? Derivative of v is 0 minus e to the x. So it will be negative e to the x, right? So if you simplify that, you will get basically e to the x over 1 plus e to the x, right? And then minus is plus basically, because minus times negative e to the x is just e to the x over 1 minus e to the x. If you want to combine these two, how do you write that? If you see that this is like, it is like a plus b and then a minus b format, right? If you multiply that, what do you get? You will get basically a square minus b square, 1 minus e to the x square, right? And then what do you get here? You can basically pull that e to the x outside, okay? E to the x. If you pull that e to the x outside, what will left? If you pull that e to the x outside, let me show you that. If you pull that e to the x outside, then what is left is 1 over 1 plus e to the x and then plus 1 over 1 minus e to the x. That's what you will get. You see that? If you pull that e to the x out and then you combine these basically here. So after you do that, you will, how to combine that? You just do the cross multiplication, right? So it will be 1 minus e to the x times 1, because that will be 1 times 1 is 1 and then minus 1 minus e to the x. So it will be 1 minus e to the x, right? So 1 minus e to the x and then there is a plus sign in the middle, and that times that will be 1 plus e to the x plus e to the x. If you simplify that, what do you get? You cancel that positive e to the x and negative e to the x. So basically 1 plus 1 is 2. So basically the final answer will look like this. 2 over, let me use the dark color there, 2e to the x over 1 minus e to the 2x. That's what you will get. That is the final answer. Okay, so what did I do here? It is like a square is 1, and then minus b square is e to the x square. E to the x square is e to the 2x. Basically x and 2 will multiply. Okay, and there these two are cancelling out, so 1 plus 1 is 2 e to the x. So this is the final answer for that. Let us see another example. That example has find the equation of tangent line for fx equals to e to the negative x times natural log of x at 1 comma 0. You want to find out the equation of tangent line. So you see that this is like x comma y. So our equation will be y minus y1 equals to m times x minus x1, but we need m, the slope. Slope is basically the derivative at this point, right? So what will be f prime of x? Tell me, what is that? This is like f, this is like g, right? So what is the derivative? It will be f prime times the g plus f times the g prime. Okay? So what would that be? That will be e to the negative x times the natural log of x, the prime of that, right? And then plus e to the negative x times the derivative of natural log of x prime. So you tell me, what is the derivative of e to the negative x? The derivative of e to the x is e to the x. But the derivative of e to the u is e to the u times u prime. So it is like e to the u. You see that? This is like a u. So what is the derivative of e to the u? The derivative of e to the u will be, so you can write this as e to the u times u prime times natural log of x plus e to the minus x. If you remember the derivative of natural log of x, it is 1 over x. You see that? So what is e to the u? Let's plug in the value there. That is e to the negative x. E to the negative x times u is basically negative x. The derivative will be 1, right? Negative 1. And the natural log of x is there, plus e to the negative x over x. Now you factor that out, okay? Factor e to the negative x out. What do you get? Your final answer will look like this. E to the negative x out. The remaining is negative natural log of x plus 1 over x. So you can write this way, or you can combine these two terms, writing the x, and there is a 1 in the denominator, right? And then just write x in the denominator. It will look like 1 minus x natural log of x. So you can combine those two, and then you can get the final answer like this. Let me write down the combined form. It will look like this. So f prime of x is equals to, it will look like e to the negative x times 1 minus x natural log of x divided by x. You can write that way, the final answer. What did I do here? There is 1 in the denominator, there is x in the denominator. You try to make the same denominator, okay, and combine those two fractions. You can do that way. So this is the derivative. So f prime of x is equals to e to the negative x 1 minus x natural log of x natural log of x divided by x. This is what you get. But you want to find out the equation of tangent line, right? So we need to find out m equals to f prime. What is x? Is 1. Let's do that. So that will be e to the negative 1, and then 1 minus 1 times natural log of 1, right? Divided by 1. So what is natural log of 1? This is 0, right? Basically this value is 0. So 1 minus 0. You see that? 1 minus 0 is just 1. So e to the negative 1 times 1 over 1. That will be basically what you get. Is basically e to the negative 1. That is 1 over e. You see that? So what is the equation of tangent line then? So it will be y minus y1 is 0, right? 0 equals to m, and then x minus 1. You see that? So the final answer will be y equals to 1 over e x minus 1 over e. That is the final answer. Okay. So the next example is, you will have to do the implicit differentiation. Find y prime from e to the xy minus 2y squared equals to 11x. Okay. So how do I find out that? It is like e to the u, right? It is like e to the u. So let me write that u form. This is like e to. Let me show you how we get the derivative. Okay, I want to find out the derivative. Let me do d over dx. I mean, you can do d over dx to all of these problems, but I want to do it because it makes more sense here. Xy. and then minus 2 dy square over dx equals to 11 dx over dx. You see that? So don't you think it is like e to the u? You can think this as u, right? Derivative of e to the u over dx, and then they don't match either. There was x times y, there is just x, they don't match. There is y, there is x, they don't match. But on the right side, that they match, right? So this will be just basically 1. So what do you get? It is like e to the u times u prime, right? Minus 2, and they don't match. So it will be 2y and then y prime, right? So equals to 11 times 1 is just 11. So what is e to the u? E to the u is e to the xy times, what is u prime? U prime is xy prime, right? Minus 4y y prime is equals to 11. Now this is product of x and y. They are both variables, right? So you need to use f and g there. So f times g, right? See that? That is f times g. What is the derivative of f times g? It is f prime times g plus f times g prime. So let me write down that e to the xy times f prime is 1 times g is y plus f times g prime minus 4y y prime equals to 11. Now our goal is to solve for y prime. So how do I do that? Let me distribute this. E to the xy times y plus e to the xy times xy prime minus 4y y prime equals to 11. And again our goal is to solve for y prime. Let me subtract this. Minus y times e to the xy and minus y times e to the xy. Also, what is the common between these two? Between these two terms, that term and that term, y prime is the common, right? I'll take that y prime out. So that will basically cancel out, right? Let me do y prime. What is left is x e to the xy, that is left from here, minus 4y equals to 11 minus y e to the xy. Now I want to divide both sides by that because our goal is to solve, right? X e to the xy minus 4y. That will cancel out. Divide by x e to the xy minus 4y. So what do you get? Your final answer is y prime is equals to 11 minus y e to the xy divided by x e to the xy minus 4y. That is the final answer for this problem. I'll take one more example, okay guys? Let us see this example. Here you want to find the equation of tangent line, but here the equation of the curve is given in the implicit form, right? X and y are mixed together there. So 1 plus natural log of 9xy equals to e to the 9x minus y at the point 1/9 and then 1. Okay, this is like x, this is like y. You see that? Okay, so how do I find out the first? So equation of tangent line is y minus y1 will be, so it will be in the form of y minus y1 equals to m times x minus x1, right? That's the equation of tangent line. But what is m? M is f prime of x. That is same as y prime, right? But you need to find out m at a particular value, x and y, that value of x and y. Okay, so let's do that. So let us find the derivative here. Differentiate on both sides with respect to x. The derivative of 1 is 0 plus. So you see that this is kind of derivative of natural log of u, right? And there is also e to the v. You see that? Okay. So let us write down that. What is the derivative of natural log of u? It is 1 over u times the u prime, right? And what is the derivative of e to the v? Equals to e to the v times the v prime. Okay, let's plug in the value of u and v. It is 1 over 9xy times u prime is 9xy prime. Okay, equals to e to the v is 9x minus y times v prime is 9x minus y prime. Let us do that one because there is a product form there, right? So it is f times g form. You see that? You can pull that 9 out, okay? Pull that 9 out, and this is like f times the g. So after I pull 9 out, I'll get, let's write on or, okay? 9 over 9xy, you see that, times, it is f prime times g is 1 times y plus x times y prime, you see that, equals to e to the 9x minus y times, what is the derivative of 9x? Is 9 minus y, the derivative of y is y prime. So in case of the plus and minus, the prime can be distributed, the derivative can be distributed, but in case of the product and the quotient, we have the product rule and the quotient rule to distribute the derivative, okay, to simplify the derivative of the product or the quotient. Okay, so let us simplify that. You can divide that 9 by 9, so what is left is 1 over xy, right? So, or you see y plus xy prime, y plus xy prime divided by xy equals to 9 e to the 9xy, I'm distributing this to both of those, minus y prime e to the 9x minus y, I'm sorry about that, 9x minus y. Okay, so our goal here is to solve for y prime, don't forget that goal. Okay, or let us split the denominator. You write y over xy plus xy prime over xy equals to 9 e to the 9x minus y minus y prime and then e to the 9x minus y. Y prime is there. Now we simplify that. We cancel y and y, x and x there. Okay. And then move all the terms with y prime in one side and non-y prime in the other side. What I want to do is I want to subtract 1 over x, okay? And then let's subtract 1 over x, and I want to add that plus y prime e to the 9x minus y plus y prime e to the 9x minus y. That's what I want to do. So let me cancel the things. That will cancel out, right? And then what is that? That will cancel out as well. So what is left is y prime over y prime over y plus y prime times e to the 9x minus y, okay, equals to 9 e to the 9x minus y minus 1 over x, okay. So what I want to do next is I want to subtract that from both sides, okay. I want to subtract this. Oh, by the way, I don't want to subtract that. So the next thing I want to do is, since I want to find out the equation of the tangent line, and we have a point x and y there, right? We have that point x and y. Now our goal is to find out y prime, or the m. So to find out the m in a number form, as a number, you'll have to plug in x is 1/9 and y is 1. So I want to plug in that, okay? So that is y prime over y is 1 plus y prime times e to the 9 times 1/9 and then minus 1, right? Because x is 1/9 equals to 9 e to the 9 times 1/9 minus 1 minus 1 over 1/9. You see that? So I just plug in x and y values there. So what is next is, let's simplify that. Y prime over y, 1 is y prime plus y prime times, well, how much is that? E to the so that 9 and 9 divided 9 is 1, right? So 1 minus 1 is 0. E to the 0 is basically 1. So it is basically that value is basically 1. You see that? And equals to, similarly, so similarly here 9 and 9 cancel out. E to the 1 minus 1 is 0. So e to the 0 is 1. So 9 minus 9. You see that? What do you get? So times 1. So times 1, right? That is 1 equals to 9 minus 1 over 1/9. Okay. So what is y prime? So y prime plus y prime is 2y prime equals to 9 minus, you can write this as 1 times 9 over 1, right? Basically this is 9 minus 9. So it is 0. So y prime is 0. 2y prime is equals to 0, implies y prime is 0. So how do we find out the equation of the tangent line then? So tangent line is y minus y1 equals to m, and then x minus x1. So m is basically that y prime, right? So you write y minus y1 is 1, you just take that as x1 y1. 1 equals to m is 0, right? So let me write down that 0 times x minus 1/9. So 0 times that is just basically 0, right? So the final answer will be y minus 1 equals to 0. Or if you add 1 on both sides, you will get y equals to plus, so y equals to 1 is the final answer for this problem. Okay guys, thank you.